So Leon Draisaitl is now a finalist for the Hart Trophy as well as the Ted Lindsay Trophy. It's the three same finalists for both trophies: Draisaitl, Artemi Panarin of the Rangers, and Nathan MacKinnon of the Colorado Avalanche. I think everybody in this town, Draisaitl being a finalist for the Hart is a slam dunk, just like he is for the Lindsay Trophy, because he is the Art Ross champion this year. And when McDavid was out of action for a bunch of games, he clearly led the team in his absence.
Yeah, I know the Hart Trophy has been around forever, as long as the Zamboni, a most valuable player. I really think it should just be most outstanding player in a regular season. That's what it should be. I think you open too many doors when you're talking about most valuable. It's very interpretive to the voters. You know, you look at it like in Edmonton's case, as long as McDavid was here and performing well, Draisaitl was never going to get the hype he should have. This year, because he won the scoring title and convincingly, you know, people are looking at him as, oh, he was awfully valuable too. So I would rather just see most outstanding player, and that's easier to vote on that season. And you're right, the other two players, Panarin and Nathan MacKinnon, were every bit as valuable to their teams. You know, MacKinnon was over 40 points better than anybody else in terms of scoring on their team. And he also, when he didn't have Mikko Rantanen and Gabe Landeskog as his wingers for about 15 games, was still able to put up 25 points in that time. So it proved that he could play without those two players. In Panarin's case, when he was on the ice, the Rangers scored, you know, twice as many goals as they allowed, and when he was not there, it was just about the reverse. He wasn't on the ice, so that showed how valuable he was. He also had the most points in the league from Christmas on. So apples and oranges. I mean, the people in the East certainly see Panarin more than they see MacKinnon and Draisaitl. So I think the vote will be scattered, but I think MacKinnon's going to win, or Draisaitl's going to win them both. Although, as Connor McDavid said, he's sure the players will get it right. He's doesn't have the same faith in the media to get it right. So we'll see. We think he was kidding, but we're not sure. But at least we saw a funny side of Connor. We don't see that too often. And I think the media did get it right when they voted Connor a Hart Trophy a few years ago. So I think Connor will be in the top 5 in the voting too, but I think he'd be 4th or 5th. Tough to not even make the top 3 and most outstanding player from the players and most valuable player from the media when you're with 97 points and you're second in the league in scoring. You didn't make the top 3 in either category.
One thing I think about when it comes to Draisaitl being a finalist and potentially even winning the Hart and or the Lindsay is, we've got Connor McDavid on the Oilers team, and he is the best player in hockey right now. I don't think very many people would dispute that. But here you have Draisaitl, obviously, is being honored this year. He won the scoring title. He's up for the finalists. Is there ever going to be a time when, because I know that Draisaitl signed his new contracts not too long ago, but boy, if he was going to be negotiating that contract now, he'd be worth a few $1 million more per year. I don't know if there's ever going to be a time when, and this, we've talked about this before over this past season, having Draisaitl and McDavid on the same team, there's nobody's like, I don't think there's anybody saying, oh, I need to be the star without having the other guy around as competition. Just like Crosby and Malkin in Pittsburgh, I mean, both players have been Hart Trophy winners. But when does Draisaitl's contract become something that could it ever be renegotiated?
It will never be renegotiated. That's what happens. The teams look at the player and says, "You signed it."
That's true. That's true.
And the player has the advantage when he's a free agent and coming off a great year to, I wouldn't use the term stick it to, but to get a lot of money from that team. And in this case, the Oilers signed him to an $8.5 million contract after a tremendous playoff against Anaheim. Never envisioning that he would score 51 year and win the scoring title the next. But now that $8.5 million, which seemed like an overreach for a lot of people when signed, now looks like about half of it. They should probably both making the same amount of money as Taves and Kane did. They signed almost identical contracts, long-term contracts there. It's a win for the Oilers. That was probably the best thing Peter Chiarelli did as the Edmonton Oilers general manager.
When I think about the Hart and the Lindsay, I mean, if they ever did combine it, who would get to vote on it? Like, I know the players created the Lindsay Trophy. That's got what, almost 50 years. It was more than 50 years ago now. Who should vote for that? Should it be the media? Should it be the players? Should it be the fans? Should it be the general managers?
Hockey fans. General managers don't always get it right on the goaltending either. They continue to say that Carey Price is the best goaltender in the league. They vote on the best goalie. And sometimes, it seems like Carey Price is always their go-to guy, even though he hasn't had the best season. Hellebuyck is, best goalie in the league this year. So we'll see if he wins it. It's a good point. The players should know who the best players are. But I've asked some players questions about who's the best defenseman, and they'll come up with two, but they can't come up with three. They pay attention to their own team. They don't always pay that much attention, or the requisite attention to the players on the other teams, especially if they don't play them that often. And it's obviously a Western Conference and an Eastern Conference, and they only play each other twice. The Eastern plays the West only twice, and vice versa. So you don't always see those players a lot. Don't see them on TV. So the media, I think we get it right in most cases. Without blowing my own horn, I think we get it right. Often we don't too, and you only have to go back to voting on a Norris Trophy back in the '80s, and Paul Coffey was, I think, the best defenseman in the league, but Rod Langway won it 2 years in a row by being the a defenseman who was lucky to get 30 points in a season. It was a pretty good plus. Well, Coffey was getting 100 points and was plus 57. So you look back and say, what were we thinking back then? Why did we vote for Langway instead of Paul Coffey? So it's an interesting point. I think the players should know who the best players are. I'm not so sure they would know who the most valuable player is, though, on a team. It's tough for me even to vote on that. I don't. It's very subjective. Theoretically, it should go to a player on a team that's in the playoffs, but the Rangers weren't going to be in the playoffs until they expanded the playoff format, and so Panarin is now in the top three. He wasn't even. The Rangers weren't going to be in the playoffs, so that was one of the reasons why Connor McDavid didn't get in the top three or wasn't considered for a couple of years, because the Oilers weren't making the playoffs.